And welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts, Nashville attorney and Democratic activist Larry Woods, and syndicated conservative talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome, guys. Another busy week. Let's start with the beer summit in Washington, a first of its kind. And I guess the positive is all the sides involved in this controversy at least got together. But did anything really get solved by having this get-together?
Well, first of all, I'll point out that Bob clearly didn't serve us up here today.
No beer summits here. It's Sunday morning.
Yeah, I think that it did what the president wanted to do, which kind of puts him in the middle, looking like the guy who's in the middle bringing reason to this issue. But did it accomplish anything? It wasn't intended to. It was just a photo op.
I'm a Diet Coke man myself, made and bottled in America. I'm not sure about any of those beers since Bud Light's now Dutch. No long-range solutions there. Obviously, race and other divisive issues in our history, we're always better off talking about it rather than sloganeering and preaching. But no, this is a problem for the president that he invited himself into the problem, obviously, in that press conference. And smart on his part politically. I think everybody that watched the news story the other night, showing them sitting having a beer, probably thought, well, good. That's a good attempt. That's a good way to try to handle it.
The problem, though, with the president, I think, in this case, and we're seeing it, I think, and Larry, as kind of a communications guy, would talk to this, too. Sometimes when the president gets asked questions, he doesn't have to answer. When he popped this out in the press conference, he had the perfect point to say, look, I don't know anything about the facts of this case, so I'm not going to comment about it. Stop there. I think this guy is so much in love with seeing himself on television, which he gets plenty of opportunities on the covers of magazines, he doesn't know when to simply just shut up.
No, I think what happened the other night in the press conference with President Obama was he tried to say what his heart was feeling and didn't get it quite right. I think what his heart was feeling was Professor Gates is a personal friend of mine for 25 years. If one of my friends calls me up getting hassled with an arrest, I'm going to think, I want to reach out and help my friend, which is a very different reaction than saying stupid.
He's the President of the United States. He needs to sometimes say, I can't play in that level anymore. I'm kind of in a job that puts me above that pay grade.
I think he's kind of said he wishes he'd phrased it differently. I guess the real question, though, does this address the bigger issue, or is this one isolated incident, now it goes away? Or do we have that open discussion now with race relations, police relations?
I've had discussions on this stuff with you, Bob, with you, Steve, with most people I know. I think it's the kind of issue in modern-day America that only gets moved forward one person, one conversation at a time. I don't think it responds well to political and other sloganeering at all.
You get past race relations issues based on who I personally know, who I personally deal with,
sure.
And then you start to apply that to, well, I bet there's people like that I'd get along with in a broader avenue. But it's a personal deal. You can't have it dictated on high, and I think that's where the president, again, made a mistake of really profiling the cop. Are there bad cops? Are there cops that are racist? Are there cops that profile? Yes. In this particular instance, there is no indication at all that that was the case. So don't imprint on this cop that that's what happened when there's no evidence that it did.
I'm not sure. I think you went a little too far there, but I agree with your main point. Let's wait and see what all the facts are, if there are any more to come out.
We've seen the tapes. We know that the lady that called in the 911 call didn't mention race, contrary to what was being claimed. We know that Gates was...
Right, and the police officer's one claiming it, and that's why I'm saying...
We also have a black police officer who was there who was backing Officer Crowley, other black police officers on that staff backing Officer Crowley. So far, nobody other than President Obama has backed Professor Gates.
Steve, I've even been known to stand up for you. That's no indication.
Next week, the U.S. Senate will vote on the confirmation of Judge Sonya Sotomayor. Here in Tennessee, 2 Republican senators. Senator Bob Corker says he's going to vote no for the confirmation. Senator Alexander says he's going to vote yes, but not totally kind of holding his nose, but voting yes. I guess the question is this one of those that the senator is saying, maybe fight a war that I can win? I'm not going to win this war. She is going to win confirmation.
She's going to win confirmation. The question, though, for Lamar Alexander is, should she win his vote for confirmation based upon the standards that the Democrats in the U.S. Senate have established? The President of the United States himself voted against Alito and voted against Roberts. There was no basis to vote against them other than political ideology. If that's the test, then every senator who's a conservative or claims to be should be voting against Sonya Sotomayor. The standard ought to be the same, not just applying it when a Democrat makes the appointment and a different standard.
Senator Alexander going to have questions to answer when he comes back home?
And he should.
I think Senator Alexander got it right. The standard by which to vote should be experience, character, intellect, the other factors Lamar mentioned, and certainly Sotomayor passes that standard, just as did Alito and Roberts, whom I they weren't my political ideology, but they met the standard, which is why they got approved by, 90 to 10, 95 to 5.
But conservative judges under the Democrats' control with the Republicans in name only, like Arlen Specter at the time, like folks like John McCain and others, were blocked from even getting a vote on confirmation or not in the Senate. Good conservative judges that were blocked simply because of ideology. Again, the standard needs to be the same whether it's a liberal judge or a conservative judge. And if Democrats, Larry, in the future will promise absolutely put it in writing, they will never block anybody on ideology again, then fine, let's move ahead. But we need guys like Barack Obama and the Democrats who are in there making that promise, and they won't make the promise.
One of the things people don't like about Washington and politics is what you're alluding to. The party in power changes their standards when they get in power. And certainly I do agree at that point. We ought to maintain the same standards whether out of power or in power. Rarely happens in Washington.
Speaking of putting things in writing, Tennessee lawmakers are now considering revamping or writing more rules for how lawmakers deal with their interns following the resignation of Senator Paul Stanley and his admission that he was being the victim of an extortion attempt and had an affair with a 22-year-old intern. Terrible event. He did the right thing probably by resigning, but really, do they want to continue to keep this as a story? Do they really need to write down, we don't want to have sex with interns? I mean, it doesn't look a little silly on their part?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting vote, particularly when you've got Bill Clinton, the former president, coming in to Nashville later this month to speak at the Democrats' Jackson dinner. So if sex with interns is a bad idea, I would expect Larry and all his fellow Democrats to boycott that dinner. I think they're playing politics with this. They're playing politics. I don't think anybody up there was confused as do you think it's a good idea of having sex with your interns? Why do they need to put a new rule in writing?
Well, that's my question.
What's wrong with the State Senator Stanley's statements is his calling it a mistake. This is not a mistake. And you're right, both Democrats and Republicans nationally and locally have been guilty. This is not a mistake. A mistake is when I'm not paying attention driving over here to the TV studio and I wander across the traffic lane. No. These people know what they're doing. They're not nuts. They're not drunk. This is deliberate predatory practices against young people. Everybody ought to be incensed about this. We ought to have a house cleaning, both parties, where they're offenders. This is not a mistake.
But do we think the media will go further to expose those on Capitol Hill on the Democratic side of the aisle that have been doing the exact same thing? You know, all this high talk, all this moralizing on the Capitol Hill right now, there are plenty on both sides of the aisle that should be sleeping pretty restlessly right now, but they don't need to sleep restlessly because nobody's going to pursue it.
What about it, Bob?
Well, I don't think party affiliation would have any impact. If we find out or someone tells us if this is going on, we're going to look into it.
How long is it going to take you to get a TV crew up here?
No. But the real question is, do they really need to have written rules? I mean, is this what seems to be a little bit silly?
Do they need to send those emails to you or Chris Bungard if they have that information?
Send them on in, and we'll be up there with our cameras.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when I say this is not a mistake. The debate, the discussion here is not whether they need written rules. The discussion needs to be what kind of shameful behavior is going on and how can we, the public, do something about it.
Finally, about a minute left to go. Health care reform. The president continues to push it forward. He had his cabinet member here in the state talking about rural health care concerns. 30 seconds as we go. Is this going to come back in September and something be approved?
Something will be approved. I think they're going to feel compelled on both sides of the aisle to pass something they can call health care reform. The question is whether it's going to be a public option, as they call it, a government-run health care system, or the Republicans have put up proposals that would make it a more private sector. Let's get people more access to health insurance and good health care, not simply more health insurance.
10 seconds.
First half, you're right. It's got to be public sector, public option. The private sector has failed in this area. I'm not blaming them. They don't want pre-existing conditions. They don't want medical conditions that are rare and numerically small. They can't make money.
Mayor Wood, Steve Gill, appreciate your insight. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.